So I want to go over the 5 main reasons why your TSP is not growing in 2023. Over the past year, I've talked to many people who are actively contributing to their TSP. And if you're interested in joining my private client program, you can schedule a free 20-minute session with me to find out your eligibility by visiting firestation.com/coaching. And mistake number 1 is over allocating your money to the G fund. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm not here to give you specific financial advice. However, keeping all of your retirement money in government bonds is common knowledge that your money will not grow as much as if you put it in stocks or a combination of stocks and bonds. And a lot of people put their money in G Fund in 2022 when we went through a bear market all year long. If that's what you felt like you had to do, then in hindsight, you made a good call in 2022. But TSP is supposed to be a long-term retirement account. If you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s working in the federal government, you still have over 20 years before you reach your retirement age. So why time the market? What some people did in 2023 is that they left their money in the G fund because they expected the stock market to continue to trend down throughout 2023. So people are missing the best performance in C, S, or I funds, right? Let me ask you this. What is the purpose of allocating money in bonds? It's meant to be used as a source of diversification and overall portfolio risk in the TSP, right? So if you're wondering why your portfolio hasn't made any returns over the year, or maybe in the last 3 years, you need to log into your TSP account and reassess your allocation strategy. What is the best allocation strategy? Everybody's situation is different, but in general, it's about your risk tolerance and your current age. Fidelity actually has really good research about investment management analysis. The first chart shows the basic risk versus reward, which is common knowledge to most of you, but I thought it's worth showing. Anyway, if I have nothing but C, S, or I funds invested in my TSP, then it's the most aggressive allocation with the highest risk, but with the highest potential returns. If my allocation has more bonds like G or F fund, then my risk is a lot lower, but the potential returns are also lower, right? So if I'm still 20, 30, or 40 years away from collecting TSP, then I would very much rather be in this area of risk tolerance where it says more aggressive so that I could have a much higher return potential. If I'm very close to my retirement age and TSP is one of the main sources of my retirement income that I need to rely on, then it's probably better for me to allocate my investments somewhere in the middle right here, right? Where the risk is a little bit lower. The second chart here shows the defensive approach versus the total return approach. The defensive approach is the blue line right here, where it can mitigate losses during market downturns, but the returns may be lower during the rising markets. For example, in 2022, during the bear market, I'm gonna label this right here in 2022, right? You might have lost 10% in your portfolio as opposed to 20 or 25% in the gray line because you have safer stocks and high quality bonds. But in 2023, I'm gonna label right here in this curve as 2023. Your net returns might be at 7% as opposed to 15% because of your portfolio's defensive positioning in safer stocks and bonds. Now, let me draw you right here, okay? Can you see that red line? What I don't wanna do is to have an extra line where my portfolio is heavily invested in just bonds where they only give me 2 to 3% in total return every single year. I wanna maximize my return because I'm not looking to touch my TSP portfolio for another 20 years. I would personally rather follow the gray line here with the total return approach, right? While I'm still young so that I could maximize my returns in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and maybe early 50s. As I turn 55 and older, I will start transitioning to more of a defensive approach in my portfolio to reduce that volatility. And keep in mind that the earliest you can withdraw from the TSP is at 55 years old. So if you quit your job, retire, or get fired in the same year you turn 55 years old, You won't get penalized if you retire between 55 and 59 and a half, but you will still get taxed on the earnings and any pre-tax contributions. You can always wait until you're 59 and a half to get the tax-free withdrawals if you have Roth TSP. And mistake number 2 is not understanding or knowing how to read the individual fund performances. When people receive their TSP quarterly or annual statements, a lot of people actually don't understand what they actually mean. So let me pull up a screenshot from my TSP account to show you how to read your portfolio performances. If you look at the top of the screen here, you're gonna see the 2023 year-to-date returns so far from January 1st to September 29, 2023. You actually have the option to make changes to the dates, and you can even look at the total returns since inception when you first started investing in the TSP. This is where TSP needs to do better by organizing the chart. This box that I drew is the 2023 share price for each individual fund. The share price for a G fund is $17.75 with 2.98% in year-to-date return, right? And F funds, if you look at the next one here, the share price is at $18 with a negative 1% year-to-date return. And the next one is the C fund, and the share price is $66.59 with a 13.05% in year-to-date return. So next one you will look at, so the share price at almost $67 with 8.84% in return. And I fund right here, the share price is at $36.29 with almost 7% in year-to-date return. And on the right side, in the second column, this is where it shows the average Q2 returns. And Q2 would be from April 1st until June 30th. We're gonna see the Q3 return soon in a few days because that's between July 1st and September 30th. And a lot of people get thrown off by this, by thinking that their portfolios are performing poorly. Remember, this is just for the Q2 performances and not the entire year. On the far right column, you're gonna see the average annual return as of September 30th, 2023. If you look at the G fund here, it's made 4.03% in 1 year from September 30th, 2022 until September 30th, 2023. That's 1 year or 365 days. The chart on the far left side is the year-to-date returns from January 1st, 2023. That makes sense so far, right? If you look at the 3-year return, it says 2.51%. What that means is that the G fund has made 2.51% every year in the past 3 years. It's averaged out. And the 5-year return says 2.26%. What that means is that the G fund has made 2.26% every year on average in the past 5 years. It's the same concept. If you look at the F fund right here, it made 0.65% in 1 year, a negative 5%. Check this out. If you had F fund, you would have lost 5% every year in the last 3 years and 0.19% every year in the last 5 years. I guess you could say that the F fund is the biggest loser out of all the individual funds. The C fund here has made a 21% return in 1 year, a 10% return every year in the last 3 years, and 9.88% every year in the last 5 years. And take a look at the S fund right here. It has made a 14% return just in 1 year, a 4.78% return every year in the last 3 years, and 4.5% every year in the last 5 years, which has underperformed the C fund, right? And the I fund, which is the international fund, has made a 26% return in just 1 year, a 6% return every year in the last 3 years, and 3.5% every year in the last 5 years. So to get your version of this investment return, make sure to log into your TSP account and click on investment in the top left-hand corner, and then click on fund performance on the left-hand side. You're gonna see the green check marks next to the funds that you're currently investing in the TSP. Don't go to the generic TSP website to get the performance charts because those are only updated once every quarter. You wanna get the most up-to-date data directly from your login. And mistake number 3 is that people are focusing too much on the investment returns and not on the contributions. Look, I get a lot of comments on my videos that they're not seeing any investment returns on their portfolio. Let me ask you this. Do you get a bigger return from $10,000 at 7% or $5,000 and 10%? You have to work on your savings rate. And let me show you how. Most people start with a 5% contribution rate to get the employer match. Whether you're in debt or no debt, a 5% contribution rate to your TSP is the starting point in your investment journey because your employer will give you an additional 5% match. That is a 100% return on your 5% contribution that you don't want to miss out on. So with an additional 5% contribution from your employer, your agency, or wherever, your savings rate is now at 10%. After I contribute 5% to my TSP with a 5% employer match, I actually don't increase any more contributions to my TSP until I max out my HSA and Roth IRA. So here's the order. I contribute 5% to my Roth TSP to get the employer match. And then I max out my HSA contribution or health savings account. And then I budget to max out my Roth IRA contribution for the year. The reason is really simple. I prioritize my HSA because it comes with quadruple tax advantages that allow me to reduce my taxable income, grow my investments tax-free, and withdraw my HSA funds tax and penalty-free for qualified medical expenses. The next one I prioritize is my Roth IRA because Roth IRA offers many more investment options than the TSP. Great tax benefits, and I can actually take out my Roth IRA contributions at any time. I can't do that with the TSP. Not that I'm going to take out my Roth IRA early, but it's nice to have that option in my investment portfolio. And I strongly encourage you to check out these 2 videos about my HSA and Roth IRA full tutorial videos on my YouTube channel, and you will get a lot out of those videos. And once I budget for the maximum contributions to my HSA and Roth IRA, then I go back to the TSP to see if I can increase or max out the TSP contribution. So if I can do, let's say 10% instead of 5%, then I'm gonna start with 10%. If I have room in my budget to contribute more than, let's say 15%, then I will do 15%. And if I can max out my TSP contribution, then I'm gonna go with the IRS limit in the amount of $22,500 for the year 2023, or $30,000 if I'm over the age of 50. So if you stay tuned, I'm gonna show you my TSP calculator later on in this video. Speaking of catch-up contributions, this is mistake number 4 that many 50-year-olds and older keep making throughout their investment journey. So let me show you this. At the time I'm recording this video in 2023, the catch-up contribution for people over the age of 50 is $7,500, which can increase every year to adjust for inflation. What you probably didn't know is that starting in the year 2025, for TSP participants between the ages of 60 and 63, your catch-up contributions is going to be actually $10,000 or 50% more than the regular catch-up amount in 2025 indexed for inflation. As long as you're working in some capacity for the federal government and you're over the age of 50, you can contribute $22,500 plus $7,500 to your TSP in the year 2023, which is a total of $30,000. And then starting in 2025, if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, you can contribute $10,000 on top of the personal contribution. If you're a baby boomer or Gen X feeling behind on retirement savings, this is a great opportunity to max out your TSP contributions while you're still employed. And mistake number 5 is not increasing your savings rate every single year. Look, I understand that government employees, for the most part, are grossly underpaid compared to private sector employees. If you look at the federal employee pay raises in the past 15 years, not a single year matched the inflation rate for the same year. And if you look at 2011 to 2013, federal employees got 0% in inflation adjustments for those years, which is really terrible for them during those years. But they also got step increases depending on the GS pay scale, okay? And it was the same thing for the military pay raises. It was awful as well. The largest increase that I saw was actually this year in 2023 with a 4.6% pay raise. So Historically speaking, both federal employees and military members barely get any inflation adjustments every single year. So why did I show you this? This is just the annual inflation adjustment. What if you could increase your TSP contribution by just 1% every year? Let me show you my TSP calculator real quick. And you can download this spreadsheet and many other financial resources for absolutely free by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. And you can also check out my Fire Success shop if you're curious about what equipment I use to grow my YouTube channel from 700 subscribers to 10,000 subscribers in just 1 year by visiting firesuccess.com/shopping. And how much you should increase your TSP contribution rate will depend on your age. So if you're in your 20s, your income is likely lower than those in their 30s and 40s. A good starting point for someone in their 20s is to increase their savings rate by 1% every year until they reach 15%. But again, it also depends on your overall household income. If you're in a joint income household, let's say you and your spouse make the same amount of money, you might have the opportunity to increase your savings rate much higher than those who are in a single income household. So when you download this spreadsheet, you can adjust your age right here and the year in 2023. Let's say you got this spreadsheet in 2024, you can change that to 2024. Your gross income right here, and as well as your beginning balance. You might already have some kind of balance in your TSP and you can log in and find that out. And you can always adjust the average market return from 7% to something higher or lower. That's completely up to you. And I'm gonna keep the employer contribution rate at 5%, all right? And keep in mind that you don't earn 7% annually. You could have 8% this year, 3% next year, and then 12% the year after. You wanna have the average annual return entered in this orange cell block to estimate your overall returns. Some people choose to do 8%, some people do 10%, some people might even do 13%, which is the average annual return from the C fund. But anyway, in this scenario, let's say you're 25 years old, making $50,000 a year with a 5% contribution rate. You're gonna get an employer contribution at another 5% of your gross income, which is a total of 10% savings rate. What you want to do is increase your savings by a minimum of 1% every year. 2% is even better. But just for this example, I'm gonna put a 1% savings rate increase with a 2% increase in income every year. That gives you a 3% increase every year. That's also assuming that you're already getting a 2% increase in income every single year. That makes sense so far, right? So by year 11, your income increased from $50,000 to $61,000. And that's not counting any step increases or grade promotions. You might be a GS7 employee getting promoted to GS8 or GS9, GS11, GS13, or you could be someone going from E5 to E6, or maybe you're getting promoted from E6 to E7. You might be an officer going from O1 to O2. This is the most conservative approach to calculating your TSP retirement. And do you notice how the employer contribution rate right here, it also increases as your salary increases annually? This is why you should never leave free employer money on the table. So if you just consistently invest 15% of your income to your TSP with a 5% employer contribution by age 55, you would have $1.15 million by age 55. Be a millionaire, TSP millionaire, actually by age 54. And by age 62, when most federal employees retire, you could have over $2 million in your TSP just with a 7% average annual return. Feel free to play around with these numbers when you download this spreadsheet, okay? You might be in your 30s or 40s getting a late start in retirement contributions. I was in the same situation as you were when I had a late start with my retirement investments. And I had to pay off over $110,000 in consumer debt between 2014 and 2016 so that I could max out my retirement contributions every single year. And is it possible for you to become a TSP millionaire? Absolutely. You have to be patient. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And when it comes to how much you want to contribute to your TSP will depend on your income and overall expenses. If I make less than $100,000 a year, I'm going to make sure to get 100% of the 5% employer match first, and then max out my HSA and Roth IRA in that order. And then try to increase my TSP contribution to 10 or 15%. If my income is more than $100,000 a year, then I want to aim to max out my HSA, Roth IRA, and TSP in that order. Let me know in the comment section down below where you are with your TSP investments.